The song of a lad that is gone.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Kaylee, and today's video we are going to talk about episode 6 from season 6 of Outlander. Now, if you haven't seen this episode and you are wanting to avoid spoilers, you definitely need to click away from this video because we are going to talk all about everything that happened in this episode, and my god, was it amazing. This has possibly been one of my most favorite seasons ever, which I'm sure I've said in nearly every video, but every episode that comes out, I just get more enthralled into this season and the storylines and the way it's just, it's absolutely fantastic. And today's episode was no different. So just a pre-warning again, if you are avoiding spoilers, click away because we're definitely going to talk and I'm going to spoil the entire episode if you haven't already seen it. Most certainly expressed that I have loved this season throughout our review videos that we've been doing for this season, and this episode has not made me change my mind at all. This is most certainly one of my all-time favorite seasons, and the episodes every week are just getting better and better and better, and the way the storyline from the books is happening in this season, I am absolutely in love with. I am a little bit worried that this is the only season that will happen with that sort of book to screen interaction where like we are really dedicated, but I don't know. I think with how much this season is being loved by fans, maybe next season we'll stick a lot to the book as well. I guess we'll just have to wait and see, but what an episode this was today. Now it jumps straight into action. Now we find out that Mr. and Mrs. McNeil are not at the Sunday church service, and they've never missed one since arriving, basically, or since it's been starting. The church services on a Sunday. And of course this leads them to, well, leads Bree and Claire and Lizzie and Malva to head on over to their house and see what's going on, make sure they're okay, just check in and see if everything's all right. It most certainly is not all right, and we discover instantly that a crazy illness is ravaging this poor house and is about to take over the ridge. This scene was really heartbreaking, and to jump straight into the episode with it, it really set the tone for how much this episode was going to bring in action and death-wise. I really think they did such a great job. It was absolutely devastating for those poor children, though.
Mr. McNeil! She's barely breathing.
Dehydrated.
What is this?
Not sure. It could be food poisoning or something worse. Don't touch your faces.
We certainly still see that Malva has a extreme interest in everything that Claire is doing, and you have the vibe that she really is learning and she wants to learn all about the medical side of things, and Claire is more than willing to teach her. We see Claire has finally found some bacteria and she's looking at it in her microscope, and of course Malva's there and wants to have a look. She really is giving off teacher vibes, and it seems like that sort of connection is growing. We know a little bit further on if we've seen this episode, but at this point in time in the episode, it really is a really nice interaction. You definitely see that teacher vibe coming out in Claire, which I really love, and it's something that I hope we see more of later on. A lot later on.
There. I think I've found our villain.
Can I look?
Of course.
Obviously, throughout this episode, though, we do learn, and it is very noticeable for people like myself who have a very big love for Masali, and the fact that they're gone. And Masali and Fergus, you know, they've gone. The print shop is definitely happening in Newburn, and they've already left. There was no big dramatic scene, the goodbyes or anything like that, which is a bit sad, but I just, I'm going to really miss her being on the ridge. Fergus didn't really worry me. I have never, from when Fergus was little, I loved him when he was younger and little, but as he got older, I definitely fell out of love with Fergus as a character. But Masali, on the other hand, she definitely pulls at my heartstrings every time, and I really hope that I would like her to come back more than the book is going to provide. I hope that is a change that we see later on. But this episode, it was definitely noticeable that she was no longer there, and I feel like you really did have that. That was probably the only thing about this episode, actually. It was that missing void of Masali. She's such a big impact. She's played such a big role so far, and to have her not there was pretty devastating. For me, anyway. The illness runs rampant across the ridge, and it is obviously very devastating as we see so many different graves have been dug, and Claire does make the comment that she's absolutely sick of going to funerals. So it really does take control, and it is knocking people out left, right and centre, which is absolutely tragic for the ridge. Then, of course, Claire is struck down with the illness herself, and she is completely out of it for a good week. Now, during this week, we do see multiple people coming in and caring and trying to look after her. We do see Malva, Lizzie, Bree, Roger, Jamie, of course. They're all very worried, and they all are coming in to take over and sort of watch Claire throughout the entire week. It's really lovely to see how many people obviously will care for the carer. Like, usually we see Claire running herself rampant and, you know, just going the extra mile. So it was really lovely to see all these different people coming in and trying to help, or so we seem, so we think. Obviously, when Claire does wake up, though, we are rudely shocked by the fact that her hair has been cut off. Now, this, of course, was not okay by Bree, Roger and Jamie. They were almost certainly extremely shocked by it, that young Malva and Mrs. Bug had taken it upon themselves to hack her hair off. Now, in the books, I think, or from memory, they shave her head so that she has a lot less hair. Obviously, TV show, I think they've done this as in, like, I mean, you know, it was going to be hard to give Claire a shaved head. And I don't think it was fully shaved. I just, from my memory, the book, the haircut was a lot shorter than what we have gotten in the TV series, even though it was a very big shock for my eyes to see Claire with such short hair. But I also, I've noticed throughout this season, and I knew it was coming, I guess, the hair cutting scene, that they were really making sure you could see how long and how full her hair had become. I don't know. I think that maybe I was just picking that up because I knew it was coming, and it's a scene that actually hits home for me and that is a story I will definitely share. But I have been, well, kind of in the exact same situation when I was younger. I had my hair completely ripped out of my head, and anyway, that is a story. I 1 minute had long hair, the next minute I had hair as long as Claire's. So for me, this scene was pretty traumatic in the fact that I understand how important it is, but seeing Claire with her hair that short, it threw me. It really, really threw me, and I thought, this poor woman, she has, like, this, and I've said this in other episodes, the trauma this woman has suffered, and now they have cut her hair off. What is going to be her breaking point? The hair would have definitely been my breaking point.
What? Oh, what on earth? Much better. I guess it's as good as it's going to get. Thank you, darling.
We know how extremely smart Claire is, though, and upon waking up, she also says, basically, you know, it was so different to the last time that she was incredibly ill, when she was dreaming and she sort of saw the bluebirds and the blue haze, and she mentions Master Raymond back in France, as compared to this time where it was black and cloudy and she was seeing snakes, and it was just the comparison to blue to black lights. You know, we all know, if you are following my Go Tell It Bees That I Am Gone video series, how intrigued I am by said blue light and all of that, which I won't spoil for anybody, don't stress, but that whole subject is something that I am so interested in. So the fact that like I loved that it got brought up in this episode, but just, you know, it was a clear contradiction to when she was ill last time to now, and she definitely knew that she was not suffering from the same illness as everybody else. Another sort of throwback area in this episode that I loved was when Jamie, of course, was sleeping or attempting to sleep on the floor so that he would not disturb Claire in bed. I absolutely love this. I mean, we know that it's a throwback to the season 1 episode of Rent, or the Outlander original book, where Jamie sleeps at Claire's door to ensure that nobody enters. I love that it was mentioned. I love that it was brought up. And I always love when they have little throwback mentions to previous books or previous seasons, and you get to remember that scene and that from that, and it just brings up that lovey-doveyness and everything in that surrounds it. I love it. I love season 1 and I'm loving season 6. So for the fact that they're tying those two together in little comments and little throw-ins is amazing for me.
Didn't want to trouble your sleep.
When we went to collect the rents and you slept on the floor outside my door.
Aye. You stepped on me, Sasnach. Nearly broke my ribs.
Another relationship that I am absolutely loving, which I'm sure many people will disagree with me, but Tom Christie's relationship with Claire at this point, I am absolutely loving. Now, the Christies, we know, I mean, we all know that they're not the most loving, caring family. There are obviously some people with screw looses up here, like, they're not all there, and their attitude towards things, I mean, okay, look, they're the villains, but I'm truly loving Tom Christie's relationship with Claire. They have this, I want to say there's definitely a mutual respect for each other here, and it's definitely being portrayed as that. The fact that Claire can just go there and be so brazen and so anti everything sort of in the woman's stance towards Tom Christie, and instead of just going, you can't come back, you can't speak to me, you know, he has these conversations with her and he sort of gives her a little bit, but makes sure that she's still sort of in her place in his eyes. I absolutely love it. It's being portrayed so well that every time they come on screen, I'm like, oh. And you can definitely see just little aspects. Even when Claire is obviously there trying to get a sample from Tom Christie, and his just outraged look was everything to me. I was just, you know, I loved it. But the fact that he then said, I'm going to, you know, walk you home, make sure you're there, and if you want to ask me questions along the way, I guess I can't stop you. So it was sort of like, well, you're not getting that, but come on, I'll take you home, I'll make sure you're okay, and you can ask me some more questions, but you're definitely not getting that. I love the way that it's just being portrayed. And I mean, I'm probably the only person in the world that is openly saying that they're loving the Christies, but I truly, truly am loving the portrayal of the Christies. And I'd love to know if you are. If there's got to be more people out there like me that are loving the Christies storyline and are loving the way they're being portrayed and loving the way that Tom and Claire have their sort of moments together. I can't be the only one, surely.
What in the name of God?
Oh, that.
See you home if you insist on asking such vile and intrusive questions. Well, then I suppose I'll stop you. Put on your hat before we go.
Claire's visit to the Christies, though, did lead to Claire realising that Tom also had a different illness to what everybody else was having, and it was something similar to what Claire was having. Now, keep that in mind, I think, for future awareness, but that was something that was definitely pointed out throughout this episode. But then, of course, the Christies arrive to the big house, and good old Malva, she comes out with the accusation that Jamie is her pregnancy's father. That makes no sense. But Jamie is the father to her unborn baby, which probably makes more sense. Obviously, we know that's not happening. It is completely wrong. And Malva, good old Malva, who everybody is hating on, is, you know, just proving why she's just a sly little snake, but being portrayed magnificently. Yeah, so basically Jamie is like, no, definitely not. Now get out of my house. Of course, Claire has had her moment and gives Malva a very good slap across the face, and then she also leaves. But of course, in the background was Mrs. Bug, and of course there's not going to be a single soul on that ridge that now doesn't know everything that was just said in that room.
It was him.
What?
What the hell is she talking about?
Your husband's ruined her. The child is his.
No, get up! No.
About that scene, I really, again, loved the fact that Tom Christie wasn't there for arguments. He wasn't there to be like, you're a horrible person, you know, you've slept with my daughter. He never went down that path. He simply went down the path of, well, if the child is yours, which I believe, you will be looking after it, you will care for it, you will say it's yours, you will, you know, everything about that. Tom Christie really handled it very well. And I'm just going to put it out there. Like, I really believe on the TV version, Tom Christie handled that entire situation very, very well.
So I suppose you don't intend to put aside your wife and marry her, since you're already married in the eyes of God. Formal acknowledgement of the child's rights as one of your heirs.
Jamie and Claire obviously need to talk about everything that has happened, and that, of course, comes straight up when Jamie goes to find Claire and explain, well, you know, like, please don't think that, like, it's clearly not true. Claire obviously doesn't think it. I mean, how could you? Not with Jamie and Claire. But when Jamie does start to sort of say, well, I do have something to be sorry for, Claire's face drops. But we know that it is only the fact that he slept with Mary McNabb when Claire was away. And for this to be the big secret that he's been keeping, well, not even a secret that he's been keeping, but for that to be the thing that he's like, oh no, I need to tell you this now because, you know, like, Claire was gone for 20 years. He didn't know she was coming back. I mean, obviously, there's no harm in this. But Claire's ultimate, who the hell is Mary McNabb? Like, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And, of course, it just brings them back even closer together. It's like, that's what you did throughout 20 years. You slept with, well, 2. But one woman, like, come on. It's fine. Claire's reactions were just gold.
Sorry.
You said you wouldn't say you were sorry unless you'd done something you were sorry for. Who the hell is Mary McNabb?
You can't her. Sassenach.
What I was disappointed in, not so much the episode, but the way it's been written, is the fact that the entire Ridge, even though Jamie has done everything for these people, he's basically given them all somewhere to live and looks after them. They all believe Malva that Jamie has fathered the unborn child and basically starts to shun, well, not shun, but definitely avoids Claire and Jamie and the entire family. Now, this obviously has a deep effect because Claire, she's there to help people. Her need to help people is always at the forefront of her mind. And the fact that now people are avoiding them and not sort of coming to her for medical assistance, it's really disappointing to think that in a world that could happen. And it does happen even in the real world. Like, if somebody's accused of something, you avoid them. There's no, like, proof, no innocent till proven guilty. Like, it's just the fact that it happened though with poor Jamie and Claire, and after everything that they've done for these people, that annoyed me. It obviously is now spread across a long period of time. Also, we get a 2-month jump. Now, during this 2 months, Jamie and Roger are away and are doing the talking with the commission of whatever, you know, the independency, I loved how they sort of just brushed over that. It wasn't a very big thing. Like, we know it happened. We know that Jamie was not elected as spokesman for Philadelphia, and we're back at the Ridge dealing with the current sort of problems on the Ridge. Instead of having an episode where it's like split it off to the war, it just got brushed over, which I very much appreciated.
Wine, cherry bounce, Mary brew and scrumpy. I mean, it's amazing how anyone can get a complete sentence out.
As Claire is in her surgery, we're again reminded about the fact that people aren't coming to get medical assistance and she isn't able to help anyone at this point in time because they're all avoiding her and Jamie. Now, because of this, she is alone in the surgery and she does start to have flashes of Lionel Brown, that disgusting weasel of a man that every time I hear his voice, my skin crawls. So when he comes on the screen in a quick flash and you hear his voice, poor Claire, she runs straight for the ether, which we know is a very big touching subject for people that are book readers. We know that that's not how it happens in the books, but ether does come into play. And at this point in time, I don't know if Claire believes she's seeing sort of a figment, like with Malva coming across, because you do see Malva coming from the distance. And I don't know if Claire thinks that it's just another thing like Lionel Brown, like she's not really there, but she's coming. I'm not sure how that was meant to actually be portrayed, but Claire goes straight for the ether and knocks herself out. While she's having the ether, she has the ether dream, and it is, of course, Malva sort of attacking at her and saying, you know, I'm going to have everything that is yours and la-di-da-di-da, I'm taking over, basically. And Claire does threaten to kill her in her dream. Now, when she does awake, Claire goes out to the garden and is sort of pottering around when, of course, she sees Malva laying there. Her throat had been cut. This was horrific. Now, trigger warning, actually, when I show the clip again, in case you wanted a trigger warning, it was very, very graphic as Claire was cutting into Malva to try and save the baby. She performed a cesarean or a C-section. And in an attempt to save the baby, I mean, poor Claire, she's just stumbled across a body in her garden and instantly goes into save mode for the baby, which of course Claire would do. I just can't imagine poor Katrina Balfe. We all know that she was pregnant during this filming. I mean, it's obvious because of the way they're hiding her stomach and they're hiding the baby bump, which they're starting to not do a very good job of, which is totally fine because whatever, like, put your imagination cap on when you're visualizing or watching the series. We know that she was pregnant. It must have been such a traumatic thing to film. Like, literally, Katrina Balfe is pregnant, about to have a baby, and you're acting in a scene where you are cutting open Malva's stomach for a C-section and getting this poor lifeless baby. I mean, we all say how much of an amazing actor and actress Sam and Katrina are, but for this scene and for Katrina to do it in such a delicate timing, like the timing of it all with her personal life was crazy. I mean, hats off to this woman just for her amazing acting abilities. It would have been so crazy to film. So crazy.
Lonely, are you?
Said it was medicine, but it's not. It's of the devil.
Oh, God.
I would love to know what you've thought about this week's episode. I personally think it's one of my favourite episodes for the entire season because of the way it was done. And I mean, there was still a lot of Jamie, but even some of my key little factors that I probably should have talked about too is watching Jamie's reactions and his facial expressions as Malva was claiming to have slept with him and to have a baby now on the way with him. The facial expressions that Sam Heughan was able to pull, if you had those glares and those sort of, like, you know, the wording even, when Jamie says to Malva, you know, I know you're lying and you're about to tell the truth. Like, you will tell the truth. Imagine that being said to you in the entire situation. You would be just like, whoa, I've crossed the line. Oops-a-days. Like, it's just crazy. There's just so much about this episode that I've fallen in love with. good old Malva. I mean, we know, surely she has to be back. And I can't think of the poor woman's name that is the actress's name. I can't think of it. And that's really bad. I should definitely know her, because I am going to look for everything that she's in from this point out, because she's done such a fantastic job. And I just hope that the people in the fandom of Outlander aren't attacking her because they get this weird concept that she is Malva. Like, can we please all remember that she's not actually Malva? Malva is a fictional character inside Diana Gabaldon's brain. Like, I just hope that that happens, because she's such a, like, just amazing actress. That is probably a video I should do. I actually had an interesting conversation with some people about the fandom, and it got a little bit heated actually in a forum in regards to people attacking the actors' private lives and saying, you know, you're a horrible person because you're like, it does my head in. It does my head in when fans put words into the actors' mouths and just try to pot stir. It does my head in. So that might be a video for a later date. We'll see what happens during our 1 week Outlander, which, you know, happy Easter to everybody. I'm sure I will have a video coming up next week. And I know my videos have definitely slowed down over the last month. I'm very, very sorry. It will definitely be picking back up again as we need to finish off the Bees playlist series. And my little secret project that I had hinted at a couple of videos ago is 100% locked in and done, and I cannot wait to share that news with you. So if you want to be one of the first people to find out what our new series is going to be about, please jump over and follow my Instagram account, which I'll put up here, because that I've definitely let slip a couple of times during during the stories, when I've sort of let slip what's coming. So if you are watching that and you do know, then we know what's coming in a couple of months. But if you don't know, it'll be released there, no doubt. I hope everybody is having a fantastic day. As I said, enjoy your week off from Outlander. Have a fantastic Easter or whatever you celebrate. I hope you have a great week. And I will see you very shortly for another video. Have a great day. Bye.
All that was me.